Well, hello everybody. Welcome to your language teaching and learning channel. And today we have a very special guest here. He is an amazing teacher and a great person. His name is Mr. Charles Ilconic Jr., and more affectionately known as Chuck. Hey there, Chuck. How's it going? Oh.
Man, it's just really nice of you to say those things, man. I'm just crying here. Overall I'm doing pretty well, man. I'm putting forth a good fight with the COVID thing and everything that's going on up here, but I'm still kicking, and I'm still around doing my thing. How you doing?
Well, down here, I'm still kicking too. So
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview here. And
Oh,
yeah,
Santi, it's something I didn't expect. I never would have expected you to say thank you, and it just means a lot to hear that from you. Of course, man. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to sit down and talk to you and be a part of your audience. This is a great opportunity for me.
well, thank you very much, Jack. Very nice words too. I don't have a napkin, but
You can use your tie.
yeah, oh, that's true, right? I've forgotten about that. Anyway, for the people who don't know you, why don't you start telling us telling us something about yourself?
Well, let me see here. I am from New Jersey, southern New Jersey, which is a different part of. It's across the river from Pennsylvania, which is where Philadelphia is. Many times people think that I'm from Philadelphia when I'm really from New Jersey. I'm a Jersey boy, and I live about 20 minutes from Philadelphia. And so, like, if you've ever been to this area, you know that Philadelphia has a big influence on the surrounding areas. So yes, we get their TV channels, and most of us root for their sports teams, although there are some misguided souls that like teams from Dallas and New York, but for the most part, it's a Philadelphia area, and so I studied communications back in the day, and my family hosted exchange students for a while, and we had people from the Czech Republic, Germany, Slovakia, and the last one was from Ecuador, who was this wonderful woman by the name of Lourdes, and she, she and I developed a relationship, and she introduced me to the splendor and the beauty of Ecuador. So I traveled to Ecuador several times, and on one of my last trips, I met Santiago Pereño, who was the coordinator at a place we used to be involved with or in or whatever. And at that time, I was intrigued by the possibility of going to Ecuador and instructing English as a second language to adults. And you told me to go back up to New Jersey and finish my studies, and you never know what'll happen. Well, I did that, and eventually you had moved on. By the time I ended up writing that former place where we used to be involved in, and they and someone had moved on, and you had moved on, and the coordinator invited me to apply, and eventually I did apply, and I got the job. And I was nervous. I was a nervous wreck the night before my first day. I had I had butterflies in my stomach, hornets, wasps, bees, you name it. There was everything, nails in my stomach. But you know what, though? The more I did it, the more I started to love it. And so I can easily say that, okay, I'm a dude from New Jersey who found his way to Ecuador somehow, and through the good graces of Lourdes and her wonderful family, and you, like, having the courtesy and the professionalism to say good things about me, to give me that opportunity, and it's something that changed my life forever. And I'm no longer in Ecuador now, but it will always have a place in my heart. And I hope to visit there someday, as long as maybe the airlines will let me travel again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't say it enough. Thank you very much for being a part of helping develop me as a person. You and Lourdes were very instrumental back then, and I really appreciate it.
Well, yeah, and thank you very much for reminding me. That was quite a while back. Yeah, when I was coordinator and you came in to ask about working possibilities. And I remember like, you were on a tourist visa or something, so we couldn't hire. And I gave you the information about how to come back and then we can hire you or bring you from the States. And oh, very interesting. Thank you for reminding me about that and about Lourdes Suso. Hopefully she'll be doing okay.
Yeah, she's doing great, actually. I mean, while the relationship didn't work out, like, she's still someone I greatly respect. She's up in Albany right now,
Mhm.
studying a PhD.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I think she was getting a
Yeah,
PhD, right? So
yeah,
very good. Mhm.
yeah. She's doing great, and I mean, there are some weird politics up here that might put a stop to that
Mm.
until COVID is taken care of. And I hope that doesn't happen for any of the exchange students that are studying here in the States that are unfortunately in a situation like many students here, having to study online and not study in an actual classroom. Right now, a lot of them are really worried, and I really, my heart goes out to them, and I hope everything works out for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a difficult situation all over the place. So yeah, we're all now having to do things online and teaching online. That's
Yeah, definitely.
quite
And
a change. So
as you know, I mean, part of the beauty of being able to teach online is you can just wear a shirt and then just sit there in shorts or in your pajamas and flip flops, and nobody has any idea.
You're giving away your secrets, but unfortunately, I don't do that. You see, I can't do that. I have to be very well dressed for the audience. Okay. Well, anyway, again, thank you for telling me how you actually started into teachings, and you've had quite a bit of experience. And it's interesting you mentioned like, yeah, when we met, I was a coordinator, and then after I moved on, after quite a few years, I came back to that place, and this time you were the coordinator,
Hmm.
and
Yeah, yeah,
so yeah, and you actually hired me. You say, hey, listen, Santiago, give me a
yeah.
hand teaching a couple of classes, and we
Hmm.
actually started working together. So
Yeah,
it's been great. So
yeah,
you've had quite a lot of experience teaching English, right? In your
yeah. Mhm.
opinion, what do you think is the biggest challenge that students face when they are learning a new language, a foreign language?
I want to go with the easy responses,
Uh-huh.
and like I know a lot of people might go for the stock responses, the common responses, and say listening,
Yeah.
comprehension, pronunciation. But Santi, I think that one of the biggest things that a student really needs to is that belief. I think it's just like anything in life. The more you do something, the more you feel your confidence growing and your comfort growing. And once you get to a certain level of confidence, then all the other things will fall into place. And I know it's easier said than done. But if you are involved if you're working with a teacher or an instructor that is able to help you really reach your potential with your confidence, then all the other things will come into place. And of course, like along with that, and of course, like listening and speaking, those are difficult things to acquire. But finding the time, having that consistency, because you and I both know there's some people that, whether it's because of financial difficulties or scheduling difficulties, it's hard for them to maintain a consistent schedule with studying. Maybe it's just like once a week or once every 2 weeks or whatever. And then you get the people that aren't able to study every day and quite often. And for those guys, like when you have that kind of consistency and dedication, then that confidence builds up, and then those other things will start to come together.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, very interesting. That's a very good answer. And yeah, you're right. I wasn't expecting, I mean, usually people say, yeah, they're speaking, they're listening, whatever. Yeah, but I needed to have something different. And so thank you for that answer. So that's
Mhm.
pretty good. And
Yeah.
students need to, start building that confidence on
Mhm.
their own too, because I think we both experience that, right? A lot of students say, oh, I have a lot of problems speaking, for example. I'm shy and I don't want to make a mistake, whatever.
Hmm.
And, you know, we know they have it. It's all here. They're just
Hmm.
trying to get it out here. That's the,
Yeah.
and the
Hmm.
confidence is the thing that they would need, right? So,
Yeah, in some ways, it's like they're on a bike for the first time, and
mm,
we're helping them with the bike, and we're pushing them,
mm,
and at some point we're going to let them go, so that they can ride on their own. So like they can look at the grammar exercises and fill in the blanks for so long, it's easy to get those repetitions and read them. But then like when we take our hands off the bike and we encourage them to speak on their own and critically think and fill in their own answers instead of what the books have in front of them,
mm,
then I think that's when they'll really start to flourish.
mm. Yeah, okay, well, excellent. And thank you for bringing the bike into the conversation here, because
Yeah.
I use in the couple of my first videos, I actually use that, you know, the bike. Like you might know everything about a bicycle, the physics involved and everything else, but unless you really start riding it, you won't learn. And it's the same with a
Yeah.
language, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, Santi, I hope to one day learn how to ride a bike myself. So I mean, like,
I thought you were going to say, I hope that one day I learn English.
that would be very helpful too.
Okay. Now, when you're teaching, okay, what topic or topics do you think that students have the most challenge with learning?
Uh, one thing that I think is important for students to understand is that there's never a topic that's too easy, because like everything, even the small things like capitalization
Mm,
can be hard, and I know like, many times they might scoff at learning the simple present or the present progressive and things like that. I mean, everything in the English language can be challenging,
mhm,
but what I would say is any probably one of the hardest things for them to do would be to memorize our irregular verb list. You know, uh, just because and actually like really like the verb tenses are the crucial step, the crucial first step to really succeeding in the English language because we have 12 of them, right? 12, 12,
mhm.
12.
Yeah.
I believe 12, 12 and a half. Let's round it off.
Yeah.
The thing is like once you know those verb tenses, it can lead you to success with the conditionals and like modals, and it'll help you put those different tenses into perspective.
Mhm,
But I think like along the way, like those things will be relatively easy with practice and reading when you see how they're used and listen to them and how they're used and you use a lot of music and listening and suggestions towards reading in your videos, and that's great. I commend you for that because those things, you know I mean, grammar has to be more than just like being in a book. It has to come to life. And if you can't speak with someone on your own, just like practice listening and reading as much as possible. But that's another thing. So back to your question, like the things that they have to memorize, like the irregular verb list, there's there are easily at least 500 irregular verbs, at least,
yeah.
and it's one thing to know the simple form, the simple past, and the past participle, but it's another thing to know what they mean and
Yeah.
how we use them, and
Mhm,
then how we use them with phrasal verbs. So at the very beginning, memorize those words and understand their meanings, and then like the other lists, like the gerunds and infinitives, those things are lengthy too. So like I think like early on, if whatever techniques someone has towards memorizing something, like I would suggest like having them start memorizing those irregular verbs as soon as possible.
mhm,
Even if you haven't gotten to those lessons yet, just say, look, just start memorizing this. And there are plenty of resources online where
mhm,
students can start to do that on their own, just to see the context and
mhm,
have them, work their way through it and to practice them. I
mhm,
would I would say that because it takes a long time to really master that.
mhm. Okay. Um, would you say, or what would you say has been the most challenging topic for you to teach?
Well, with my experience with gerunds and infinitives, I would, hands down, I would say the perfect gerunds, or as you know, what our blue book used to refer to them as, the past gerunds and the past infinitives. You know, like I appreciate having worked with you in the past, and I look forward to working with you in the future. And that thing, you know, those things, like, first you really got to understand gerund and infinitive structures. You also have to understand the present perfect meanings, and you also have to remember your passive and active structures, the differences between, you know, knowing the difference between having studied and having been studied. I used to love telling students that, like, having studied is like you're actively studying, but having been studied is like, you know, people are like poking you and conducting tests on you and stuff like that, you know. So I would say hands down the perfect gerunds and infinitives.
Okay, well, very interesting. And well, I hope if there are any students watching these videos that they don't get too overwhelmed with, you know, the vocabulary that we're using here, like the perfect conditionals and the
Well,
minute,
that's the thing.
you know,
That's the thing.
yeah, go ahead.
You know, learning a language, and it's no, technically, I mean, like, just say all these fancy you know, meanings of them. And hey, if you're watching, you know, if you're new to teaching or new to learning the language, I was in that boat. Like, I learned this as a kid, but when I started instructing students, I didn't know the difference between a gerund or a progressive verb. I couldn't tell the difference between my left hand and my right hand, you know, when it came to teaching. I really, like, you know, the teachers that really care, they're going to do the extra work to study and find that perfect way to explain it and break it down to you. But as a student, any student that's watching this, any teacher, is at the very least, like, make sure you know the basics. Because if you you will never understand the advanced stuff until you master the basic stuff. But, you know, it's doable. It's possible. I mean, anybody can do it, you know, and it all depends on how hard you work. And you know, like, you know, every now and then I think about some of the students that I've known that have gone on to study PhDs in the States or England, and they have impeccable levels of English. Dare I say, better than many native speakers, you know? But the thing is, like, I always tell my students, at some point in their English learning lives, they were in the same boat as you. And they look at how far they've got. And it's all a matter of dedication and how hard someone is willing to work. You know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was going to say. You know, if there are beginning students who are watching and say, oh my God, look what they're talking about. You know, don't be overwhelmed, don't be concerned, because obviously you're not going to go and learn this stuff when you're in a beginner level. Everything works gradually. You know, we've talked about process and progress. So nobody's going to teach you that in the beginning. And by the time you actually get to have to learn that, you will already know enough English, so it'll be easier for you, right?
Yeah.
And one thing that, I'm sorry, that you mentioned also, you know, is the teacher obviously plays a very important part. And what you mentioned, you know, the teacher should find a way to make the topic easier and understandable for the students. So this communication thing is very important, you know, like sometimes we ask the students any questions, they don't say anything. So, you know, maybe I assume they already know everything. But no, don't be afraid to ask questions. And I always tell my students, look, my job is to try and explain to you. And if for some reason you don't understand, what that means is that I haven't found the right way of teaching that to you. So you need to tell me, and I will try and find that way, you know, so you finally get it, you know.
Let's do this again. Let's keep doing it until we get it right, you know. And too many times, you know, there are too many, there are, you know, I would say there are some people that are teaching English that, you know, just they don't really put in that extra work to understand that, you know. And one of the things that I've always taken into heart is that, like, we're doing more than just teaching English. We're helping them find the perfect ways to express themselves in another language. And to some extent, for many people that are trying to move to another country or take the TOEFL to study in another country or whatever, uh, we're a part of that journey to their finding a better way of life for themselves. And so like I couldn't ever look at it as just like a means to, just here, just look at these exercises and figure it out. Just read this chart. I really want to make sure that they understand what they're doing when they're in that situation where they got to think and express themselves in the language and hopefully succeed beyond what they had ever thought.
Right, exactly. And that's, you're mentioning something else. We talked about the teacher, obviously, it's our responsibility to try and find ways to make the topics easier to be understood by the students. And, but it's also, the students also have their own responsibility. And
Right.
I don't know if I mentioned this in one of the videos, but I remember somebody, we normally say, okay, look, I'm here in the class, I'm going to, we got to share this. It's a 50-50% thing, but I remember somebody told me, no, it's not a 50-50 thing. The teacher has to give 100% and the students have to give 100%
Yeah.
for this to succeed, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very important to have that.
Yeah, and I think you've also said this before, and that's 100% inside and outside of the classroom. I mean, both sides. Neither side can just be happy enough with like using the book and going through the process of teaching or learning the language in the classroom. Once you finish class, it's not like you close it and you go off and you do other things. You gotta find that motivation to pick up the book and reread the notes, as you said in one of your previous videos. Reread the notes. Try to exercise it on yourself. But also, like if you come across something that you didn't understand, just write it down and don't be afraid to ask your teacher. And the same thing is like the teacher has to say like, do I have a good enough sense of my students to feel that they understood what I explained to them? And if not, let me give them a few more exercises, be it like written or spoken or something to make sure that I know that they understood what we reviewed.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Yeah, and very interesting. Okay, and just about something else that you mentioned, and this is why students should be afraid, right? Because we've all been through it, and what you mentioned, and this is normally what happens, right? When we first started teaching, that's what happened to me too. I didn't even know what a simple present was, or a present progressive, or a present perfect. And I remember the first job that I had teaching, they gave me a test, and when they asked me those questions, I just made up some terrible answers. And the manager, he was going over my test, and I was sitting in front of him, and he was laughing his head off, And I go, look, I need to be honest with you. I just don't know what those terms mean. And he said, well, yeah, obviously you don't know what they mean, but you know how to use them. For example, he said, well, what are you doing? And I go, well, we're talking here, He said, that's the present progressive. And I go, oh, that's what it's called. So yeah,
Yeah. That's it. You know how to say it. You think you do. And many times you're misled by pop culture into believing that a certain thing is said a certain way when it may not. It may not be said that way. So it really takes a good discipline to develop, not only as a student but also as a teacher.
Yeah, and this is something that they need to keep in mind. It's a process, and you keep improving and improving, and it's happened to us, right? Remember whenever we've had something new to teach, and we're preparing the class, and we go, oh my God, all this time I've been saying it wrong, So I need to teach the correct way of saying it, to the students in order to avoid confusions, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's, sometimes we just need a little help from our friends, right? As Joe Cocker once said, right? And, if you're not sure, like if you have a supervisor at where you're working and you want to double check with the grammar, go ahead and ask him. And many times, I mean, dare I say, you can just double check on Google and find some really good resources there as well. But don't just, guess it's right. Part of being an effective teacher is knowing it and selling it, having the moxie go in there and let them know that this is right and this is why you got to do it this way.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And I'm sorry, but I need to correct you on something there. It wasn't Joe Cocker. It was actually the Beatles. was ringing
Oh, okay.
star.
Oh, okay.
With a little
Okay.
help from my friends. Definitely very good.
Well, no, no, no. I thought it was Joe Cocker. I had a little help from my friends.
He actually did that later.
Oh,
The same as Elton John with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, you see. That was in the
ah,
70s after the Beatles broke up. And Joe Cocker, the same idea.
uh,
This is a cover actually from the Beatles.
uh. You know,
Uh,
earlier I heard my Cocker Spaniel singing it.
Good.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to kind of close up here, can you share an interesting experience, a nice experience that you've had? I know you had a lot because I had the opportunity to work with you for a couple of years recently, and I've noticed you had like the comments that I had from students and stuff. I can just imagine being in one of your classes, and I'm pretty sure none of your classes were the same. Even if you had to teach the same thing, I'm sure in the next class you found another way of doing it. So why don't and I know you had you had very good relationship with your students and everything else. Can you share maybe a very nice experience that comes to mind?
Well, man, it's so hard. Because there are like two versions of me. You know, actually now like a third one. Because like there was me in Ecuador from June of 2004 to March of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came back here, and then I went back to Ecuador in September of 2007. And then like that was a different phase of me, and now there's this new phase of me that's doing this online.
Mm-hmm.
And so like so you're right. I've been reinventing myself, and I've always made it a point to make sure I'm having fun and I enjoy being there, and that students will find a way to reciprocate that. If you want to be there as a teacher, they want to be there as well. So I mean, every now and then, I hear from students, former students that I had in like 2004, back in the beginning when I was just like, feeling my way through the darkness with teaching, and yet they still tell me that they had a great time, and they loved being a part of Chuckadelphia at the beginning. And then like, as I develop, like every now and then, it's great to always hear from former students to know, you never really know what kind of an impact you have on other people until they find you, and they tell you, they thank you. And, it's a great feeling, to know that they care, they appreciate the work. And, so one of my current students now is with her husband, and she knew me back in like 2005ish, 2006, and I guess she saw that I was doing this again and online, and she came back and she wanted to learn with me again, and that means a lot to me, and it's always great to know that the students, and every now and then I'll hear these guys that are studying like PhDs or master's degrees, and they say, I learned this from you and I'm applying this here, and there's nothing like that, and now is, I'm doing my own YouTube Chuckadelphia channel, and so I have like the free videos there, and people might be picking up a couple of things here and there on there, and applying them, and it's cool. And then like every now and then I'll hear from people that, like I went through a stretch when I didn't put any videos up there, and people were, like, we miss them, like, can you get your videos up again? And, it's cool to know that they appreciate the effort and what I'm trying to convey to them. And it's hard for me to think of any specific thing now. You put me under the gun. But it's just like, I've always had a really good connection with the students. They know how hard I work towards helping them. Sometimes they think I'm an ogre and hard and strict and whatever, but when they know me, when they have had me as their instructor, they know that there's a lot of heart. I'm like that because I care,
Good. Yeah, well,
So,
thank you very much for sharing that with us.
yeah.
And yeah, and congratulations on your channel too. I know Yeah, you're getting better and better on your special effects and everything. I see you're in
Oh,
a
thank you
beautiful
very
beach
much.
there.
Thank you. I just have a very big backyard. Sometimes I'm down by the river. Other times I'm in downtown Estonia. You know.
Right.
So
Well, anyway, it's been very nice talking to you, Chuck. Once again, thank you very much for taking the time for this interview. And
yeah,
I'd also like to thank you for inviting me for that Facebook challenge. Was on the reading post one
yeah,
book every day.
yeah, yeah.
To be honest with you, I think 7 days is not enough. I'm having a really hard time.
Well,
Which book should I put in first? And because there's so many books that make an impact on your life. So, but thank
yeah,
you for inviting me, and I'll
yeah,
start posting as
yeah.
soon as I make up my mind which will be the first book that I
I,
post.
I'm pretty sure you're going to choose either Green Eggs and Ham or The Cat in the Hat. One of the two.
Exactly, they're right here. Yeah, actually, yeah, you're reading my mind. Yeah, I think that's one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so once again, thank you very much for taking the time for this interview, and
Thank you.
congratulations, and keep on succeeding with Chuckadelphia and your online classes. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Santi. Thank you for having me. Yeah, again, please check out Chuckadelphia and keep watching Santi's videos. They are awesome. Everybody appreciates them. Okay.
Thank you very much, Chuck. Nice talking to you, and take care. Okay.
Thank you, Santi. You do the same. Carpe diem.
Bye bye.